Sean?
Ain't got no gas in it. Ran out here. Yeah. We are up bright and early, heading to 42. See if we can, we should probably be going to test and tune, but, you know, I'm not really a big test and tune guy, so we'll just test it on the fly and see what happens. Hopefully we don't regret this, but we did make a lot of changes, but oh well.
Oh well. Weather is beautiful in Ohio today. So you got to take advantage of it. Be foolish not to, because we don't get many days like this in April.
We got about an hour till we get there, and I think we're like the last class in time run, so we should have plenty of time to get everything situated. And
who needs test and tune? Let's just throw in the hat and see what happens.
that's what buybacks are for.
That's what buybacks are for. True enough. So
I'm going to predict 608.
608. That's very specific. So
We'll see. I'm going to say 608. But I don't think it's going to be faster than last year because we added, I know the new oil pan's a little bit heavier. And of course, Larry added like 4 or 5 little bars. That, I don't know, probably adds up to another 10 pounds. So. And I was not able to get my nitrous bottle filled, so there'll be no testing the nitrous today until I figure out. Apparently there's nobody within like 2 or 3 hours of us that fills nitrous anymore.
Anybody in Ohio knows where to get nitrous, post it down in the comments for us, because we definitely have no idea where to go at this point in time. So here we go. Let's see what happens.
We made it home from our first weekend out, and I would say it was mostly a success. We did have quite a bit of drama to start off the day.
What happened here, Sean?
Ain't got no gas in it. Ran out here. Yeah.
No, we drove off the mobile.
So on the warm up, after I drove down to Tech, so I didn't put fuel in the car before, after starting it here at the house and warming it up a couple of times and then loading it up and unloading it. And so on the way back from Tech, the car ran out of fuel, which is fine. That's happened more times than I'd like to admit. It happens. Luckily, she came down and saved me, and we threw some fuel in it, fired right up, drove it back. Unfortunately, when we drove it back, something wasn't right. I could tell it kept blubbering. So when I got back to the pits, I parked the car, and the front bowl float was just stuck, and it was just gushing fuel, just like a waterfall coming out of that, out of the boosters. With the car off, fuel pump off, everything off. Fuel cell sets up so high that it'll pretty much gravity feed the fuel pump if the floats stick, which is kind of a bummer. So I turned it over a few times to get the fuel out and kept starting it to not flood the motor and not hydrolock it. Well, when I pulled the needle seat out to clean it out and get it working again, well, the angle the car was sitting on, fuel just continued to pour in the motor. Or it didn't pour, but it was like dripping in the motor the whole time we were working on it. It wasn't a long time, but it was long enough. All the fuel went into the front, into what, 2, 5, and 6. I just bumped the starter a little bit because I suspected that might be the thing, and you could immediately, it was like, So I didn't use the starter anymore, and we immediately started thrashing to pull the plugs. We didn't have a whole lot of time to do this. We didn't get there super early. It's kind of a long drive for us, so we got there just in time, but not in time for something like this to happen. So we pulled all the plugs frantically, and sure enough, when I turned it over after pulling the plugs out, I cranked it over by hand, and she confirmed it was just volcanoing fuel out of the cylinders. I checked the fuel. I checked the oil to make sure that the oil wasn't like, the oil level wasn't like way higher now, to make sure we didn't totally wash out the brand new oil. But the oil level didn't really change. So I think the rings were fresh enough in that motor that it actually like held most of it there in the cylinder. Got it so it would turn over again. Well, then our battery was dead. so the car wouldn't hardly turn over because the battery was dead. So we had to put it on the charger real quick and charge the battery up. Meanwhile, at that point, I think they had called us to the lanes. Finally got it to start. Of course, at that point, all the spark plugs were soaked with alcohol. So it ran like absolute garbage. It would barely idle, wouldn't rev up, just total garbage. Sounded terrible. But I was pretty confident that the old MSD 6AL box would clean it out once we did a burnout, and she'd come back to life. So I set the float levels back to where they should have been. We drove it up to the lanes. As soon as I hit it in the burnout, I knew she was fine. She came out of the burnout box just fine, staged it up, and I called what I called 608, and I think it went 610. Yeah, so it went 6094 right out of the box. So I was 29 on the tree, and the car went 609 for our first hit. So I was pretty excited about that, considering all the changes we made. It worked perfect. The car went absolutely laser beam straight down the track, flawless. That's a pretty good lick for all that stuff going on in my head.
42 has these fancy downhill lanes, so you can just roll. You don't ever have to start your car. It's pretty handy, and I get plenty of steps from it. And I don't ever have to push his car, so that's my favorite part of the downhill roll here at 42.
We went immediately right back up to the lanes for the box time run, and I was 039, and the car slowed down to a 612 for box. Now, the reason it slowed down was because everyone was hot. There was usually the first weekend out, it gets like an air pocket in the water in the cooling system, and so it was like 200. It was like 190 something when I staged. And so it was breathing hot air for that second run. So anyway, slowed down to 612 for the second hit. I was 39 up front.
dialed pretty honest. The first round, we had a little bit of time in between rounds. We had about an hour before first round. I was ready to go. So for first round, so we made a pretty good lap first round. I was pretty excited. I was 008 up front, and car went 12.2 on a 12. So my opponent did red light, so I ran it out. But yeah, we were pretty much like a 10-pack the first run off the first elimination run off of the year. So I'll take that all year. So first round of box, I actually missed the tree a little bit. So my opponent seemed to be having some trouble staging. It took him, I think they had his dial in wrong, is what you said. They had his dial in wrong. So I sat there on the pre-stage bulb for like, I don't know, a long time while they corrected his dial in, and there was all this stuff going on over there. So I sat there for a long time. I probably should have just backed out and then restaged, so I wasn't sitting there thinking about it. So I missed the tree a little bit. I was 47 up front. And but the car went 612 on a 612 again, and he was later than I was, so we still got the win. He was 60 up front, so we were going to round 2 and box and no box. Then we came back for round number 2 of no box, which we made another pretty good lap. We had a little more time in between those 2 rounds. We actually had 2 hours between round 1 of box and round 2 of no box. So that was the longest intermission we had all day. And so the car actually, I think the weather changed a little bit on us and I missed it. We didn't take our weather station with us. We were just kind of winging it. So I dialed 612 again, and we actually went a 610.9. 610.9, and I was 36 up front. My opponent he actually had me up front. He was 26 up front. I didn't notice that. But he took too much stripe down there, and he broke out. So the car won me that round. then the wheels fell off. So second round of box, we had a 450 dragster, and I had just gone 610.9, and we came back up and ran. So I was 20 up front. He was 16. I got down there, and man, he was nowhere around. And I let off, and then I grabbed the brake right at the end to give it back by 0.02. So that was painful. So I gave it back 2 thou to be over by 17 thousandths. So that was brutal. I gave it back 2 thou. I swore I crossed first, but I guess that 40-mile-an-hour difference was tough to judge. And then, so we come back up. So we were done in box at that point. So we come back up for round 3 of no box, and nobody's going down the right lane. But I like the right lane, so I'm like, I'll come down the right lane. I don't give a shit. And I figured out why nobody's going down the right lane. It's because Nick Hastings was sitting there. I have raced Nick a lot, and I think we're pretty even. I don't know. But we always have nasty races. I mean, he always lives up to his nickname, Nasty Nick, and this one was no different. So this was just a heartbreaker race. I lost by one 10,000ths of a second. So we're pretty even up front. He had me a little bit. I was 16 or I was 20 something to his 16, and the car slowed down on me for some reason. I did not lift. I ran it out the door. There's a lot of factors that my old brain wasn't taking into factor, that after we get a few races, then it'll start calculating all those things again. So I just couldn't run the number. I just missed the dial in a little bit, and he did what Nick does and took the stripe by 1/1,000,000th of a second. So that was that. No complaints about the weekend. I mean, we went out with a totally untested car, and it ran exactly what I actually had the time slips from going to Mount Vernon in my other pocket from the last race, and it went like 6:08.9 the last run at Mount Vernon, and then went 6:09.4 off the trailer at 42. So I have no complaints about the car. The car was amazing. We're still scrubbing in the new tires. I have a hard time doing a burnout at 42 for some reason. Just a light car and no horsepower and stuff. I have a hard time doing a burnout up there. So, but we have new tires, and we'll be back for next weekend. So thanks for watching. Hopefully she can piece this all together and make some kind of sense. But thanks for watching, and hopefully we'll see you in the next one.